welcome back to the Future Print Virtual Summit. It's day one and we're still talking about young guns in print and celebrating the future of the print industry. And really happy to be joined by Alison Grace, who is Communications and Policy Officer at Entergraph, who's going to be talking to us about Print Your Future and attracting the next generation of the print industry, which is something that we've explored already during this Young Guns in Print Day, and we're really excited to hear about what you're doing and what you're going to present to us. So thank you so much, Alison.
Thank you, Caris. I will just share my screen and then get going.
I'll hand over to you.
Okay, so you should see everything now. As Caris said, I'm Alison Grace. I'm Communications and Policy Officer at Entergraph. And today I will talk to you about a project which we've been working on since the beginning of the year called Print Your Future. But first, I wanted to say a few words about who Entergraph is and what we do. So Entergraph is the European Printing Industry Association. We are a very small secretariat based in Brussels, and we represent 21 member associations. So that's national printing industry associations from 20 countries across Europe. Through our members, we represent a sector of more than 100,000 companies and more than 600,000 employees, which generates a turnover of 79 billion euros. In terms of the share of the production value, the sector is made up of printers producing advertising, books, labels, magazines, catalogues, security printing, newspapers, and many other products. So Entergraph's work consists of representing the printing industry at European level. So we are the voice of the printing industry in Brussels. We advocate for the printing industry towards the European institutions. So this ensures, or we try to ensure, that the sector's voice is heard at European level. We inform both our members about ongoing EU legislation and EU officials about the most important issues and interests of our sector. And finally, we network with EU institutions, with sister associations, so associations representing other sectors which are closely related to the printing industry. And also we network with the wider print community. But today is for focusing on one specific aspect of our work, which is the Print Your Future project. The longer title for the project is Attracting a New Skilled Workforce for Quality Jobs. So I'd like to break that down slightly to give you more of an idea of what the project actually focuses on. First of all, there is a new skilled workforce. So essentially, this means a focus on recruitment and on how to find and how to attract young people to work in the printing industry. The second aspect of the project is for quality jobs, and this, in essence, is more focused on employment and how to then keep young people in the printing industry once you've found and attracted them to work for you. The project is a 24-month project. It was initially due to run for 18 months, but because of COVID, it's been extended by 6, so it will now last until January 2022. During this time, we try to achieve the aims of the project by completing 4 different work packages: diagnosis, capacity building, communication campaign, and a final conference. The project is supported by a number of different stakeholders. First of all, the European Commission is funding the project, and Entergraph is coordinating it alongside our European social partner, Uni Europa Graphical. And we're also supported by 4 different stakeholders representing the 4 countries which are in focus in our project. Those are Estonia, Germany, the Netherlands, and Portugal. We also have the support of a technical expert and consultancy, Spin 360, who are very familiar with these kinds of projects. So first of all, in the diagnosis phase, we have 2 main outcomes. One is a survey, which is closing very soon. It's been running for the last few months. And the second is a high-level workshop, which will take place in the middle of next month. The survey is focused on collecting information about the topics that I've already mentioned, so about recruitment and employment in the printing industry. And it's trying to have an idea of the big picture of these issues, finding out the problems, the solutions, and the best practices. And the high-level workshop, the aim of this event is to validate the results of the survey and to start the discussion on best practice initiatives and campaigns in these areas. So the next phase of the project is the capacity building phase. This is very much focused on collecting best practices from across Europe about how to find, how to attract, and how to keep young people in the printing industry. Ultimately, what we want to find here is all of the fantastic, inspiring examples of initiatives at country or at association level or at company level, which are doing a really great job of selling the sector to young people and are very successful at getting people to come and work in the sector. Because we know that these campaigns and initiatives exist, and there's a lot of them. The idea is not to reinvent the wheel with our project, but really to try and gather together all of the information which already exists and package it in a way which could be useful for someone who perhaps needs inspiration on this topic, be that an association or a company. That's what the best practice toolkit is for. So this is really going to be a concrete guidance which can help associations or companies run a recruitment campaign or initiatives. We will focus on, for instance, what kinds of tools and messaging which could be used to contact young people of different ages. So from primary school right through to college or vocational training centres, but also their parents, career advisors, their teachers, their schools. What are the most effective ways to reach out to these people and in what way? And also to give some examples of existing initiatives in these areas which could potentially be used. So the next phase is more of our externally facing information. It's the communications work package. This has 2 main parts. The first is a website, which we are currently working very hard on, but it's not available just yet, although it will be very soon. And the second is 4 Young Workers' Days, which will take place in the 4 different countries that I mentioned earlier. The Young Workers' Days are really to promote the opportunities which are available in the printing industry in that country. There will be, for example, talks given by people working in that sector in the language of that country. But going back for a moment to the website, it hasn't been launched yet, as I said, but I can give you a small sneak peek now. The website will focus on a variety of different pieces of information with the overall aim of showing the reality of working in the printing industry and what available opportunities there are for young people who pick this career path. For instance, we will have a page on schools and courses, which will essentially list all of the different schools and courses which train people to work in the printing industry by country. Initially, we will focus on the 4 countries mentioned, but through Entergraph's membership and also through our network and other people with whom we collaborate, we're hoping to also extend this, so it should have quite a broad and detailed overview of all of the training opportunities available across Europe. We will also showcase different pieces of information which is more related to showing us the sectoral identity of print. So this will include pages and information on job profiles, because the printing industry has so many different types of jobs that somebody could work in. And I think this is often, the extent of this is not necessarily realized by people who don't already work in the sector. So it was important to us to also showcase the vast variety of jobs which are available in the printing industry. We will also have one section of the website which is focused on showing photographs, videos, interviews with young people who already work in the sector, who can introduce visitors to the website to their jobs, their roles, what they do, perhaps give a tour around a company, information such as this. Finally, we will have a final conference. This will take place in late 2021 in Brussels, and this will be when we really present all of the concrete outcomes of Print Your Future and look to the future and next steps, what we will do with the project. So that, in a nutshell, is the Print Your Future project, and that's the outcomes which we hope to achieve. But why exactly is this project needed? Well, we know that there are many companies, associations, and countries, as I said, who do very, very well in different aspects of recruitment and employment. We really want to find out about these successes and share the information with other people in the sector and other countries to help support these practices on a much wider scale across Europe. I think we're also quite familiar, those in the industry, with the fact that print sometimes has an image problem. The sector is sometimes understood as being quite old and dirty, low-tech, or non-digitized. But again, we know that this is a great misconception about print. It's really a myth that print is a disappearing sector. The reality is that there are, of course, some subsectors or some companies which are doing better than others, which is the case in any industry. And with COVID, many have also been under more pressure for various reasons. But this doesn't change the fact that print is needed for the future, and it can offer young people a really varied career path if they want it. There is perhaps some element of truth in some of the misconceptions. For example, print is generally, the average age of people working in print when compared to our competitors, for instance, is relatively high. It depends very much on the country and the company, of course. But when you actually think about this in relation to the fact that print has, the printing industry in Europe is 95% SMEs, you can really look at this in a different way, and you can think that, okay, there are small companies, and this really means that for young people entering the sector, there are many, many mentoring opportunities with people who are very knowledgeable and very experienced in the sector, and also potentially progression prospects in terms of moving up into different jobs for younger people. Next is the fact or the belief that print is perhaps not so digital. this is absolutely not true. The printing industry in Europe is highly digitized and it needs many people with digital skills. In fact, our sector was one of the first manufacturing sectors in Europe to digitize. It had to be because of the nature of the industry and the nature of our competitors and our products. Finally, the allegation that print is low tech is again, it's a misrepresentation of the sector. The speed with which new technologies are introduced into the printing industry is absolutely phenomenal. So print can offer a lot of opportunities for young people in terms of career progression and varied jobs. It's highly digital and it's highly high tech. I mean, these claims are not new for people who work in the sector. We know all of these things, but young people, their families, their teachers, their career advisors, they may not know these things. They may not be familiar with the industry. So one of the main things that we want to communicate with this project is these messages, basically. We think that communicating these messages remains a really critical task for the future of the printing industry. We really hope that our project and the tools that it will ultimately create will help to communicate this message more widely and then ultimately help to support the future of print in Europe. Thank you very much.
Alison, thank you so much for that in-depth look at the Print Your Future project. What a really comprehensive and really well needed initiative. Thanks so much for sharing that. If I could just ask, kind of staying on that, it is, what a huge undertaking. It's really important. What was it that occurred that made Entergraph want to take on this big project? How did it come about? How did it come to be funded by the European Commission? Can you give us a little bit more background on the project?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really good question because I also think it's a really important topic, and I think it has been a really important topic for the industry for quite some time. Well, it came about because Entergraph is a European social partner. So we work with the European Trade Union representing workers in the European printing industry in social dialogue. And this project is funded by the Commission under social dialogue. And the reason we decided to go ahead with this specific project on this topic is because we've had many, many discussions in the past on skills and skills-related issues. This is one of the main topics that we focus on in social dialogue at European level. But such a huge part of this is the fact that, okay, yes, we need the skills and people to work for the sector, but how do we do that? And the main point to make here is then attracting people to the sector. So training is one thing, and giving people the right skills to work in the industry is one thing, but actually attracting them to then pick our sector is another that we found equally important. We've done skills projects in the past, and we felt that this would be very complementary of that work.
Fantastic. And it's the way you've broken it down into those sections is great. I think, I mean, the diagnosis side of things is so important. We really do need that. A proper diagnosis, a proper look at some of the reasons why there are challenges, and I think one of the challenges is something that you talked about as well. It's such a vast industry. We've already talked about this as part of the Young Guns in Print conference program as well. It's so vast and so varied, which is fantastic, but it also can be a challenge in itself. It's hard to define, and that can be part of the reason why there are many misconceptions, as you talked about. How do you think the project might go about tackling some of those misconceptions, especially with such a vast and varied industry?
Yeah, that's an important problem which we also want to try and address. I think the website is going to be a key part of this, because As you say, the industry is very large. It has many different types of job roles and job profiles. There are also many different types of products and types of printing. And there are so many avenues in which you could join the printing industry. The website will really try and make these definitions very clear. So what different processes are there? What kind of companies could you work for? And what kinds of jobs could you do in those companies? And we hope to bring some clarity on that issue in one place on the website.
Yeah, absolutely. And the website looks great. I mean, that to have that list of courses and different areas and make it really easy to choose and see what you might be interested in and where your skills might be useful. I think that's really great and something that could hopefully be duplicated or similar initiatives around the world. I think would be great. One, we're to bring it over not too much into COVID-19 territory. We are still, unfortunately, in the midst of a pandemic, and we're still feeling the effects. And there's been a lot of journalistic reporting and studies that young people are going to be quite badly affected in terms of their place in the workforce or just starting out in their careers. And so that's why, one of the reasons I know this initiative was kind of thought of prior to that, but it's going to be, more important than ever as a kind of stepping stone and, a bit of a leg up for young people. I know that you're kind of primarily focused on this project, especially for this presentation, but I know that Entergraph does look into this kind of thing and has looked into the economic impact of COVID-19. Perhaps you could just give a really brief overview on some of the findings there.
Yeah, of course. And this is something which we very much focused on during the course of the pandemic. In terms of the economic impacts, I think we have to think about the sector in different ways. I mean, there are many different subsectors of print, and some of them have been much more affected by COVID than others. Packaging, for example, producers of food packaging or pharmaceutical packaging have actually been doing very well because they're producing products which are essential for our food and medicine supply chains. As well as this, printers of certain types of books, like textbooks, children's books, young adult fiction, in many countries in Europe, these products have also been doing extremely well. They're really needed in our society. There are, of course, other areas of the printing industry which have been more negatively affected by COVID. One of my first slides mentioned the production value of the European printing industry and how I think it was 27% of it relies on advertising. I mean, advertising budgets during the pandemic just fell away, particularly for March and April. They are starting to come back again now. They weren't necessarily gotten rid of completely, but campaigns were often delayed. So this has, of course, had a much bigger impact on printers of advertising. And we have to wait and see what this means for the long-term future. But we already can see that this potentially will bring more mergers and possibly also some bankruptcies when government funding runs out. So in terms of a broad look at the whole sector and what this will mean for jobs in the future, we'll have to wait and see. But it's not necessarily black and white. There are many areas which are doing okay, some which are not so good. So we will have to keep monitoring this. But for people who want more information on this topic, I would direct them to the presentation of Beatrice Close later in this event, because she'll go into much more detail about the economic outlook for print in her presentation.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. There's a presentation from Beatrice. There's a whole rest of the week left of incredible programming at the Future Print Virtual Summit. Alison, thank you so much for sharing that presentation with us. It looks like it's a huge project and it's so needed. And thank you so much for sharing it.